Welcome to Empowered Living. I'm Ann Chu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. So if you're ready to live a life by design, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Empowered Living, the podcast where we explore the habits and conversations that help us build more intentional, resilient lives. I'm your host, Ann Chu, and today we're talking about how to stop building a life that drains you and start designing one that is intentional and purposeful. I'm joined by Cesar Quintero, entrepreneur, EOS implementer, and author of The Profit Recipe. Cesar has built and sold multiple businesses and now helps leaders scale with purpose and clarity without burning out in the process. In this conversation, Cesar and I talk about what happens when your work takes on more than it's giving, how to stop micromanaging, why self-awareness is the foundation of growth, how to tell when you're stuck, and we talk about so much more. Whether you are running a startup or leading a growing team, this episode will help you step back, reflect, and take real steps toward a life by design. Let's dive in. Cesar, I am so excited to welcome you to the show today.
Thank you for having me, Ann. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Okay, let's dive right in. So, can you share with the listener a little bit about your background, growing up in Venezuela, and then your transition to Miami, and how that kind of has shaped what you're doing today?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I grew up in Venezuela, went to school, high school, college, all of that. I was always like in a rush to grow up. And I started in Procter and Gamble and was there for about 3 to 4 years before Venezuela started going down the shooting economically and political storm it's on still. But I was born in US and I moved to Venezuela when I was around 6. So I had, the American passport, I had the options. And that's why I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back and I had two options. I'm like, I'm either going to go study or start a business. At 24, I'm like, I'm going to get married, move to Miami and start a business in an industry I don't know. That was the risk. I know there's no risk at that age is what I said. So I moved to Miami and started the business. It was in the food industry. So we cooked and delivered meals to people in their office. This is 2003. So it's pre-Facebook, pre-Uber Eats, pre all of that. I went door to door and convinced people it was convenient to have your meal delivered kind of thing. So we had now they call them ghost kitchens. So we had like a industrial kitchen and then we would cook everything there and deliver everything to everyone. At its height, we were at 1,500 to 1,600 meals. Within 3 hours, we would deliver. So it's a logistical nightmare, but also, my engineering and my process and all these things. So what I realized is that the more the company grew, the more I resented it, the more less time I had. There was a lot of issues, but I needed to push forward and succeed and do all these things. And so that's when I started growing that business. Eventually, I went through a lot of transformation, self-awareness. Probably sure we'll talk about all that today. And then I sold that company in 2016. And since then, I've been trying to help different entrepreneurs and leaders go through the same process I've been through so that we can really live a better life, a life by design, a life that, we want to live. Going through that process was something that was a calling for me, I guess, and going through it and now sharing that with others.
Yeah, so you just mentioned that you went through incredible transformation during that process. Can you tell
Yeah.
us what spurred the transformation? What was the catalyst for that?
Oof. There's always so many catalysts, but mine was very clear. I started my business. It was around 2003 and 4 is when we really got started, plus the permitting, plus all that stuff. And as a young kid, I wanted to grow the business. I was focused on profitability, on systems, on scale, on making sure that I was entering a new product, a new market, all these things. After it was 2011, 2012. I went through this. So I had Uber before Uber. We had 17 drivers that were contractors, and we had a class action lawsuit, which is the same class action lawsuit Uber had all the time, which is, the dispute between drivers being contractors or not. Now, I had drivers that would deliver for my competitors, right, and different things, and I didn't care. Mm, But we were really solid in our foundation and all the things legally. So, but at the end, it's a labor lawsuit. So I had to fight the whole way to prove I was right. And that year and a half, we eventually won the suit, thankfully. But as anybody who's gone through a lawsuit, just the personal drainage, the mindset, the like all of the energy went there, and my company started stagnating and going down. And me personally, I developed health issues and stress, and it was the same year my firstborn was born, and like all these things happened, as universe, God just sent everything at the same time. And I realized that I had been building my business for about 8 years, and I had nothing to show for it. I had spent all of my money on attorneys. I had no money on my bank account. I was the least paid person in my business, right? Because you're always trying to grow and scale. And I'm like, why am I doing this? This makes no sense. So that was a big catalyst. It was like, I remember I was in the mediation where the federal judge was, he's like, this case is ridiculous. He was telling the attorney they need to go out and the whole thing, and we need to settle. It's just pay the attorney, $150,000. I'm like, I don't have that money to pay an attorney right now. Like, so for me in my mind, it was like, how can I not afford this after 8 years of business? So that was a big slap in the face and a wake up time, really understanding that I'm an investor in my business. So everything was going towards that business, but energetically, it was just not, I wasn't receiving back what I was putting into the business. So that was a big catalyst. What I did then is different, but
So, what you just said, that you were not receiving back what you put in the business, but it took a wake up call for you to realize that. If somebody is listening, what is an indicator that they can be looking for? What are the signs that they could know that they might not be getting back what they're putting into the business? If they don't want to wait for the wake up call, how do they know that they're also kind of in that same position?
and I see this constantly with us as entrepreneurs is we tie our business to our identity. So it's like if the business fails, I fail. And and there's a lot of people that also get into a rat race in corporate and all this stuff. I'm not saying this, but a lot of us just like to put our head in the sand and just like let's just keep going. And just the moment. Look, I just lived this. I went for a 10-day vacation. I realized I hadn't had a 10-day vacation in 5 years, I think, like fully, no technology, all of that. And when I came back, I realized, wow, I do all these things. And I hadn't, like, through time, you just accumulate a bunch of roles and a bunch of things and a bunch of times and things that I'm doing. And that's what I'm practicing now. And I think the question I would ask myself is, what's feeding me energy and what's taking away energy, right? What are energy detractors? What are energy givers? And as a people pleaser, it's hard for me to say no to things and put boundaries and stick by them. But now I've been able to see, I think what I said before, if you're trying to think as an investor to my company, am I getting back what I'm putting in? Right? A lot of us don't see ourselves as investors in our own companies. We're investing our time, our energy, our money, our family's time, right? And sometimes I don't think of myself as an investor in my own company. So as a stakeholder, am I getting back what I need? And if I make this decision, who am I making it for? Is it better for my family, or am I people pleasing? Is it better for my business, or is it really returning that rate of return that I need from the business? So I've started thinking about things more like that way. I don't know if this helps or not, but what am I in the rat race for? What do I have the head in the sand? What am I trying to ignore? And then what's feeding me and taking away energy?
The energy piece is so important because in our workshops, we teach our clients, we use the term destructive self and effective self. And we talk about being the chief energy officers of your life. You're the CEO of your life, and how your energy is absolutely contagious, right? And people don't even realize if they are in a bad spot with their work life, they're bringing that energy home to their families. I mean, when I was in a job before, when I was like a W-2 employee before, I was really struggling. Like I was miserable, and I was bringing that energy home, and the energy was showing up as like me just coming home and being so exhausted and mentally exhausted that I just wanted to sit on the couch and not move after work. Like I would come home, like, don't talk to me. I don't want to. And we see that with our clients, like that they're just in a bad place with their work, unhappy, and it's draining their energy and they're bringing that energy home.
100%. And you're bringing that energy everywhere, really. Right. And it's this whole frequency thing that we're living. And, it's the frequency you radiate is the frequency you attract as well.
Yes.
That's why, like, especially like we're thinking about the catalyst period in my life. And it happens always. And, it always happens in threes and everything has to happen at the same time. And I think we're just attracting it, right? Like we're living it and it's just like, I'm in this phase. So I need everything to come down and brah. And we tear it all down, right? I don't know. Is that a thing?
It feels like it's a thing, right? Like the idea
Yeah.
of when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I don't know.
But it's also an opportunity, I feel. Like for me, that wake-up call, and that's one of my wake-up calls, right? But in 2012, I met Simon Sinek before he was Simon Sinek, right? So
Wow.
he was doing a little tour around the EO sphere, and I'm like, oh, I like what he's talking about, like purpose and all these things. And so I signed up for one of his workshops. It was like a 2-week thing on uncovering your why. And, his book was just coming out and all that stuff was happening. And what I realized in that workshop was that my purpose was people.
Mm.
I've always loved empowering people. I've always loved, helping people. And I realize it's not helping them. I don't like helping people. I like giving them tools. I like giving them things so that they can self-empower and they can grow and they can, right. I don't, I get pet peeved by people that I give things to and they're like, no, I don't want it. And I'm like, fine. I'll next. Right. So for me, I want people who are hungry, who are smart, who want to do it. Right. And what I realized is, and my phrase back then was, I want to empower people so that they can live their life by design. They can live the life they want to live. And what I realized is that the previous 8 years in my business, I was so focused on profitability, systems, scale, all these things. I was not focused on my people. And then that was a big hit for me when I'm like, wait, what if energy detractor is profitability, finance, scales, process, all that stuff? Energy giver, how do you call it in your workshop? Energy
Effective self. Your
effective self. Yeah, the effective self is how I show up for people and do what's best for them. I'm like, I prefer to be that type of leader. And that shifted my whole thought process because now I started looking for things on how can I empower my team with tools that they can become better people. And I didn't care about, of course, I cared about the business, but my role was mostly, let's face the people. And that's when I found EOS. I found a great game of business and open book management. I found like many ways on how can I train, because of course I'm in the food industry, it's blue collar labor workers. And how do we train all of us in becoming better leaders, better finance, better business managers, and really creating a leadership team and a team that works and builds together. We did compensation packages and bonuses. And what happened was I didn't have the money to pay the attorneys. And it was the first time, and this is when Brene Brown was also kind of like, I was, now Brene Brown puts into words what I felt back then. But I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, I don't know how to move forward. And I remember that was December of 2012. And I got all my team together and I said, guys, I don't know how we're going to manage this. Like, we need to pay 150,000 to my attorney, 25,000 to the other attorney, and the process was like 30,000. I don't have that money. I don't know how we're going to make this work, but this is all of our lives now in danger, right? So like, let's band together and make this. So like the power of vulnerability and just bringing this to the team where I thought they were going to break, everybody got like really excited. It was like, yes, let's fight for this. And that's where we did financial education and EOS and how to accountability and how to run things. And within 1 year, we doubled in size, quadrupled in profit.
Wow.
And I never imagined everybody making these bonuses because in my mind, in food, you're usually at 4 or 5% profit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We hit 13% profit in our first year alone. So the bonuses, like there were employees that earned 2 months of salary. As I didn't do this right, but it happened. And we were all like, oh my gosh, it's incredible. And then, the next year we did it again. And then the third year was a lesson. It's like, we can't put these aggressive goals all the time. But, but like it allowed us to really, with me focusing on how can I help my people succeed, which is what brings me the energy, what brings me that. And then by 2016, I was distracted in many things because EOS helped me manage my business just one day a week, which was a dream. So I was distracted and doing events and speaking and started my facilitator a little bit and here and there. And by 2016, my team is like, we need you back. Like, what's going on? You either need a pivot, change, there's a lot of more competition, or just let us take over. And that's what happened. So I sold my business to two of my leadership team members. We did an SBA buyout loan. And so my leadership team members bought the company from me. And then that freed me up to really focus on empowering people in different ways, which is what I do with the Profit Recipe and the Evolution Flywheel and all that stuff. So now I live my life every day doing what I love to do and the role I love to do and how I show up. And that's really a big transition, because if I had stayed with my head in the sand and that catalyst moment not happen, I wouldn't have realized that I was just trapped in that spinning wheel, right?
Can you talk a little bit more about what you see in some of the leaders that you work with regards to what it looks like when they have their head in the sand? Because I can think of a very clear example from our clients, which is clients who tell themselves that they are sacrificing for the family. I'm sacrificing and putting all my eggs into this business basket because that's what my family needs. They're telling themselves they're making all these sacrifices for the family when in reality, their family is the one that's actually suffering.
Suffering.
Right. Yeah. And so, but what are some other examples that you see where leaders just have their head in the sand? What are some of the things that they might be telling themselves? Some of the lies that they might be?
No one else can do this but me is a big one I see a lot, right? Which I think was my way of thinking before my catalyst moment, because I thought I was the only one that could establish the direction. I had an ego that everybody had to come to me,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yes, I know everything. And it was this this piece of me, just, I guess I was young and feeding the ego and like I know everything and everybody comes to me for everything. And so, but then also the counter of that is I'm not empowering people to make decisions. I'm not empowering them for really accountability and ownership. So a lot of times it's nobody else can do it as good as me is one of the biggest detractors for us in the head in the sand. The other one is really poor self-awareness. I think I was guilty of that for a while as well. I think now I'm an assessment junkie. I love assessments. Like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anybody sends me a link for an assessment, I'm like, yes, I want to
Me too.
know. I want to know more. I want to know more. I'm like, yeah, like the more I know about myself, the more I understand what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. An example of this in my business, I was always, the business owner needs to be in charge of their finances and they need to know all their numbers and they need to make, so like for the first 8 years, of course I had no money. Like if you know me personally, you know that I'm a poorest cash manager there is. Like I care about money. And I do bank accounting. It's like, oh, I have money in the bank. Pay this, pay that, pay this. And then it's like next week it's like, oh my God, I don't have it. So I didn't even know what a cash flow statement was until like year 12 of my business. I thought I knew and I had to, but like being a person that's curious and open-minded and self-aware would have clearly said, you are the worst person to take care of your finance. Find somebody who knows how to do this better. And now I have a business partner who's incredible. I've never seen this much money in a bank, and I don't have a debit card. I don't have anything. I have no access. I have no decision making. And we get together and that's what happens. So I think really self-awareness is key here. And I think that's what you work a lot with leaders as well, which is what I love is, that self-awareness would really help us understand what we're good at and not. Because the reality is, I believe entrepreneurs change the world, right? It's not about government. It's not big business, but that only happens if we tap into what we're great at. If we tap into our strengths, our purpose, and our values, and that dictates the change that we want to see. if we're stuck in not being who we are and just unaware and our head in the sand, we can't really be the change we need to be.
Yeah. And I think part of the um this ego is also there's a fear of losing control, right? Like the entrepreneur
100%.
is so afraid to let go that they've got this strong grip on everything because they're just, I mean, they probably built the business that way, right? Like they started with doing everything and then they never learned how to delegate.
Yeah. And at the beginning, you have to wear all the hats. You have to do all the things, but the fuel that got you to one place is not the same fuel that gets you to the next, right? So, yeah, it's a what got me here won't get me there philosophy as well. But yeah, for sure, for sure.
So earlier you talked about the evolution flywheel. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and specifically the four stages?
Yeah, so after going through that period and then having more time in the business because I wasn't working as much and or as hard, I was working more effectively. I wrote this book called The Profit Recipe, and while I was writing my book, I'm like, wait, all of my entrepreneur friends are going like they go through the same cycles I go through. So there was a pattern that my story's not unique. Like all of us go through the same thing. What I realized, and I think one of my unique abilities is to really connect the dots and see patterns and systems. And what I saw is that there's like five stages of the flywheel where it really starts with a startup, right? So the startup, we're either accidental entrepreneurs or we've been entrepreneurs all our lives, right? It's our parents died and I had to take over the company, or I had to move, or my company. Like I don't know if I would have left PNG if my country hadn't gone down the drain. Like I was really happy there, and people were really surprised when I quit. But there was always an entrepreneurial piece in me. But I think all of us get started in startup, right? And there's a reason we become an entrepreneur, but in the startup phase, it's really about what you said, wearing all the hats, trying to prove the market, trying to prove the things, and that's really where the flywheel usually starts. But then comes that piece where we were talking about, like, the leader by design is really, how do I start understanding what type of leader am I? What are my strengths? What are my abilities? Should I spend my time or I should not spend my time? And, this only happens once you're scaled a little bit, because at the beginning you have to do it all, but then little by little you have to start to let go. But what do you let go of? Right. So that's the leader by design phase. And then once you go through the leader by design, then you go to team by design, right? So now that I understand who I need, I'll go and find people who I need. And in leader and team by design, I see it as twofold, right? I see it external team. It's a coach, mentors, like peer groups, right? We're part of EO. And so you can have peers, you can have mentors, you can have coaches. They can peer you, and they're team members that could help you externally. And then there's the internal team by design, which is, how do I create a leadership team? How do I create a team I can trust? How do I create a team we can delegate to, right? So kind of that is a team by design. So we start with a startup, crazy mayhem. Then it's like, all right, leader by design is really understanding ourselves, understanding what we're good at, what we're not, where do we need to let go. But then once we understand that, who do we let go to, right? So that's a team by design. And once we find the right people, then we can start having a business by design, which now it starts running without you. And this is all about what I love EOS, decentralizing yourself as an entrepreneur, making sure that clear roles and responsibilities. One of my clients said, which I love this analogy, is, and all these operating systems, whichever you choose, is like going from a jazz band to a marching band,
Ooh,
right?
that's
Because in a
good.
jazz band, everybody's riffing, we're all going, there's the energy, there's the music. If you make a mistake in jazz, the client doesn't really notice, right?
Yeah.
It's jazz, right? Like so you go from a jazz band, but then the marching band is like, all right, we need a leader for each section. You need to stand here. We need to know how to do here. One mistake will be evident for everyone. And let's just, and we can scale the march band to hundreds of people, right? Or the jazz band can only be around 5, 6 people. If more than that, there's no way you can do. So, like, I love the business by design is, how do we go from a jazz band to a marching band? And how do we have a business that works efficiently and scales effectively and doesn't depend on anyone or any unicorn within the business, right? And that's a business by design. And what happens there is that now the leader starts being decentralized. And it's like, oh, now I start questioning life, and I start questioning my time and energy and everything I used to do. And I don't know if you've seen this with a lot of your clients, but I see a lot of people who's like, all right, I don't have much time in the business. Like, what am I doing in the business? I'm like, And I'm like, okay, think about what you did this month. I'm like, oh, I got a huge line of credit. I had a great relation. Now you're more focused on the big picture, on the strategy, on the growth. And that's usually when now they'll start thinking about life by design. Where do I want the business to go? What's my real purpose in life? What's the impact I want to make? And usually, sadly, it happens after all this has happened because that's where we should start. We
Mhm.
should start on, oh, what makes me happy? What am I good at? What is good for the world? The ikigai, kind of like what's good for the world? What am I good at? And then start a business. But that's not how it happens. We all start a business because shoot, we started a business, right? But then that's why it's a flywheel, because once you really get your purpose aligned, your strengths, then you go back to another startup, which is now an easier startup. And it's, you've already learned, you've already gone through the process, you understand all the things. So that's why it's a flywheel. The first time is really hard. It took
Yeah.
me 8 years to just learn
Uh,
of trying to, you know, go through all these emotions. Who am I? What are my team? How do we do all these things? And then eventually I would say 16 years of the first business. It took me 8 years to get to a first million, right?
yeah.
In my next two businesses, within the first year, I was at a million
Yeah.
because we already went through it. We kind of understand. I know I can't do this. I need to find a partner that complements me. I need to find team members that complement me this way and build faster. And right. And so it's like, that's why I call it a flywheel, because it's really a stages. You go through all stages. Now we go through all stages at the same time. But the reality is, where am I stuck? And then just go to the stage and focus on that stage. Is it about me, my leadership style, my awareness, my vulnerability, my delegation, or is it about my team? Do I have the right team members externally and internally? Or is it about my business? Like, do I need to improve my business, create more scalability, or is it about, am I not aligned to my business? Am I not aligned to my ideal life and strengths, right? And then adjust your business towards that. So that's I hope I did it some service here, visually representing through words.
Yeah, no, that's great. Can you tell us where you see most people get the most stuck and where it's, like, the hardest to get unstuck?
I would say usually, well, by data, it's startup, right? Most startups don't get off the ground.
Okay.
But I would say once you pass the startup phase, it's a team, I think. Right?
Mhm.
And I see a lot of people struggle to have important team decisions that don't get made fast enough, right? I think people who enjoy a jazz band don't enjoy a marching band a lot of
Mm,
times.
yeah,
There's people that can shift and change. There's people that were key people in the startup phase that won't be key people in the business phase. So there's a lot of people energy management that needs to happen, and change management. Whereas understanding what I want from the business, where I want to be, I need to make certain tough people decisions. And so I'm not talking about letting people go. I'm just talking about maybe they're not a leader anymore. They need somebody who's hot, who can help them, mentor them, become better leaders, right? So I think that's where I see most people get stuck because of loyalty, because of tenure, because of arrogance and ego. Um, where I've seen companies take 2 to 3 years to get to where one company could have gotten in a quarter, right? Just because we're not making the right people moves and decisions, which would be part of the team, I would say. So you
right.
can't really get to a scalable business until you have the team figured out.
Yeah. What is an indicator that somebody needs to make a tough.
Oh, what's an indicator? I think it's when there's a lot of resistance. I think resistance is a clear signal, right? You'll hear this a lot from these people is, oh my God, I do so many things
Mm,
and nobody can do anything without me. And the company would fail if I leave tomorrow. And they never take vacation and their offices are a mess and they know everything about everyone and they know the politics. They have the deep skeletons in the closet and they have everything in their, but it's like, okay, tell me what you do. It's like all these things, all these things. No, 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 I know, but just give me a list of the things that you do. Oh, it's too much to mention. That's impossible, right? So this is like a clear signal of a person who is going through a resistance phase. It's like, all right, let's get clarity, transparency, accountability, and let's just move forward. Let's not make this all about one person. Let's make it about the team. There's a book, I forgot the author, but it's Who's Your Mike? Have you heard of this or no?
well, I haven't.
There's a book that tackles a lot about this. It's a Texan guy. I forgot his name. But who's your Mike? We could research it and then and post about
MIC or MIKE?
Mike, I think it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Yeah, and then in this he talks about how do you deal with and it's every startup persona and it has like 5 or 6 different personas and how do you deal with them through time. It's a great read. It's an interesting read, but I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, right?
And you talked about how Life by Design should be where most people start, but they don't even have the space to do that work until they feel like they've gotten the business to a certain place. So if somebody's listening and they really want to make this shift of being intentional about creating a life by design, what's a habit or a ritual that you would suggest that they start with?
I think well, now we live in the era of ChatGPT. I don't know how much you're comfortable sharing with ChatGPT or not, but one of the practice I've started doing now, it's a daily practice because I've always tried those apps like the 5 minute journal and all these things, and it's just not I can't get into it. But it's really having awareness of what you're grateful for, what brings your energy up, what brings your energy down, who do you need to forgive, what are you longing for? Like just asking yourself those questions on a daily basis can start developing patterns and it starts showing you and lighting places where it might not be aligned to what you're looking for, right?
Hmm.
Is that I don't know.
Interesting. So you're telling ChatGPT daily your
Yeah, so I asked ChatGPT to ask me on a daily basis. It's like at 6:15 a.m., send me a prompt, right? And it asked me, what are you grateful for? Who do you need to forgive? What are you longing for? Any lessons or fears, anxiety, and contractions that I had last day? And then I asked them, when did my energy go up yesterday and when did my energy go down yesterday? So those are like the little questions. And that's like a
yeah.
10-minute thing that I just go through. And then this is something I started doing lately. And then on a weekly basis, it's like, what are the patterns that are showing up for me
Mm.
in my reflections? And then on a quarterly and then on a monthly basis, it's like, all right, let's bring this into a reflection and see different patterns and different ways that I could see and what are things that I'm avoiding or not tackling. So I'm using that. I don't know how safe that is or not,
That's amazing. I love that.
but I've been using it more and more, and it's been really fun. Actually, I'm always a curious guy. I guess since I got that bug in 2012, I've always tried to find ways to improve, and I'm curious on what's my next level, what's the next thing I need to do, which also could be a trap because I'm always looking for the next thing, which is what I'm working on right now. Is like there's doesn't always have to be a next thing, right?
Yeah. That's hard though for a visionary like you.
Yeah, well, the phrase I'm using more now today is I don't, because I think the fuel that got me to where I am today is not the fuel I want for the future. So the fuel that got me to where I am today was a lot of pressure.
Mm.
I would pressure a lot, right? And I would, emotionally and verbally and like let's go team and all my businesses. I've always been the leader by pressure, and now I want to be the leader by presence. So I'm
Mm.
shifting from pressure to presence, where I think this is a realization I had a couple of weeks back going through this, which is one of the themes that came up from all my reflections, which is I am so good of a coach for my clients. Like I'm there, I'm listening, I'm reflecting. I'm not giving the solution. I'm just there. But then I go to my teams and I'm like, why are you doing this? And why do you do it? And then my pressure comes on. And I'm like, no, why can't I be with my teams like I am with my clients? Why can't I just be
Yeah.
and then have them, right? So I'm going through that shift again right now and just going through that awareness that I need to start being more than pressure.
And I'm the exact same way with my team as well, like with my clients versus my team, but then also with my clients and in the session room versus with my kids, right? Like I can be this amazing coach for my EOS clients and then at home I'm like rescuing and shooting all over them like why are you doing it this way? I would never do that in the session room with my clients.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard when we there's different barriers we shift and our personas shift in the barriers, but But, I'm trying to be as authentic as I am in every single facet of life, right? I am who I am in this podcast, as I am with my family, as I am with my friends, as I am with my clients. That was one of the biggest compliments one of my clients gave me the other day is like, it's like, oh, you're the same guy everywhere. Like everywhere I see you, you're the same guy. And I'm like, yeah, like, isn't that supposed to be the way it is? It's like, yeah, but almost nobody is. So that was a big compliment. And I guess, we need to be authentic. We need to be ourselves. And, sometimes we need to be our professional selves. And then too much of ourselves is also, I got to that extreme as well. It's like, we need to be ourselves. And I'm going to be a crybaby every time I want to. And I'm like, no, that's not a professional best self. Let's rein that in.
If someone is listening and they feel like they might be stuck in their business, working in their business instead of on it, what would you recommend as a first small step that they could take?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about going inwards and understanding, what we talked about at the beginning. Am I getting what I need from the business as an investor, right? I'm investing my time, money, energy. Am I getting what I need from it? Number two, if I'm not, then how am I participating in this? So the self-reflection, the leader by design is what am I doing? What should I do? What should I give up? And what am I willing to, manage? And then number three is let's find the people that can get us there. A lot of times, like I see a lot of people that are stuck because they want to be the smartest person in the room, or they want to, and it's like, no, let's figure it out. Like if I can't get there, can somebody else out? And nowadays with the fractional world, my God, I didn't have this in my first business. Now in this businesses, I'm like fractional everything. Like you can get high level people at a fraction of a cost for a couple of hours that they would be like better than a full-time employee anyway. So it's like, there's so many people out there that can help you level up and get to the next level, and find peer groups, find mentors, find coaches that can really get you to that next level. I think that those are the steps I would take.
Yeah. Okay. So, talking about mentors and coaches, what are some important characteristics that you think people look for if they're trying to find a mentor or a coach?
I think it depends on what you're looking for, right? So I love, any Olympian. You know how many coaches an Olympian has? Do you know this stat or no?
I don't know this.
11.
What?
11 coaches. The average Olympian has 11 coaches.
Wow.
One for nutrition, one for training, and now the coaches don't need to be better than the Olympian on their field, but each of the coaches help them with a specific thing, right? And a specific trait. So I love the Olympian philosophy, and I have a accountability coach. I have a performance coach on health and metrics. I have a coach for my business. So I have different, and I have a mindset like I love looking for people that have already been where I've been, right? So who've already walked the talk. What is it? Walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who've
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
gone through it, and they can see where I'm going. Cause again, our stories are not unique. Like these are patterns that happen to all of us. So I love people who have walked the path and that can get me and help me level up. Most of these people come from a good place of purpose, right? And that's what I look for. So they need to align my purpose. They need to align my values. I've gone down the route of different people that don't align my values. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, it's not aligned to who I am. And it's not they're good or bad values, right? It's just that working in Amazon and working in Whole Foods, it's the same company, but it's completely different vibes. So it just depends on who you want to work for, right? Where do you feel more comfortable?
Yeah.
No judgment, but
Yeah.
there's logistics, performance, and enhancement, and there's groovy, happy, family, holistic. So there's no judgment, but for me is I want to find people who've walked the path and who've also aligned to my values and purpose.
Okay. So, can you share with the listeners about when you're working with your leadership teams, what that looks like? Specifically, can you share a little bit about EOS? We actually don't talk a lot about EOS on this podcast. So, can you share about EOS and what it is and how you're using it to help your clients?
Yeah, of course. So EOS was one of those systems. So in 2012, when I was looking for different ways that I could empower my team to be a better team, I found this book called Traction by Gino Wickman. And I read it and I'm like, duh, I'm a process engineer. Of course, these are the things we do. I know all these things. And what I realized is that the genius around EOS, and I don't want to diss other systems, but I tried eMyth, I tried scaling up, I tried so many things in my business, but they didn't stick. What I loved about EOS was its simplicity. It was just so simple to put into practice and play, because they were like, oh, do this first and then do this and then do this. And then it has change management included in its process, which I didn't realize at the time, but I'm like, oh, within 6 months, my company was a whole different company. But it's creating, it helps you create a team. It helps you align in vision. It helps you communicate better, and it helps you execute better. So it's hard to really describe, but how I simply say it, it's a system that helps you align, have better communication and health, and better accountability and traction. Those are the three main things that EOS does for a company. So if you have communication problems or execution problems or alignment problems, this is a system that helps you and your business thrive. Now, a lot of people go like, oh, but how do I know if, what's a ROI? What's a return on investment on EOS and all these systems? And like, look, this is part of the business by design flywheel, right? So it's once you have your team, once you have yourself, and and EOS kind of goes team by design and business by design. It's a little
Okay.
bit of both, right?
Okay.
Because it's trying to field your team. Understand the whole first year is really, let's get the right team members in place. It's really what EOS is all about. But the way you have to get team members in place is to create the safe foundation for it. What are the goals and accountabilities? What are the KPIs and metrics? What are the meeting pulses? And like, we need to create a framework. And that's what EOS helps you do, is a framework to really measure people. Are they behaving the right way? Are they doing the right things? And do they know how to do that well? Right. So you can measure people in different ways. And that's what EOS really helps you get to, is to that core of your team, so that then you can execute a lot better and communicate better. So that's what EOS really is about. I could spend a whole podcast around EOS. But for me, I just love the simplicity. And I was talking about the goals. How do you know the ROI? And it's really a focus measuring. So it's like, a lot of times I have clients that want more time. Great.
Mm.
So let's focus on getting more time. So the system will help you get more time. We want to focus on growth. All right. The system will help you focus on growth. So it's an energy management system that will achieve whatever you need to achieve with a team that you need to achieve it with. That's what EOS really does.
Can
Sorry,
you
I
share?
went on a ramble.
No, that was great. That was great. Can you share one of your favorite success stories from EOS?
Oh my gosh. Yesterday I was with a team. This is just recency bias. I can say this with I've worked with for over 100 companies already. And look, I've worked with corporate, huge companies, small mom and pop companies. I've worked with all, and it works with every single one. And this is a perfect example of that. I started with a company they were about 50 million in revenue. They did antique car dealership. And on our first day, it was 2 owners, and they brought in like 5 or 10 people. I don't remember. It was like a whole room of people. And they were in the brink of bankruptcy. And they had a loan, right? A loan to ratio of inventory they were about to take the whole line of credit out of their feet because the inventory was too high, and they didn't know how to tell the team. So our first day together, this was a year and a half ago, our first day together, we talk about accountability chart. We talk about all these things. We talk about what are the main priorities for this quarter. And they're like, well, if we don't sell over $4 million this quarter, we'll go out of business. Like, kind of that moment that I had in December of 2012. And the whole team was like, all right, let's do it. And the level of alignment, and those 2 owners cried on the first date because they were burdening this in their shoulders, and they didn't know how to express this to their team. And once they did, they realized the team banded together, and they really wanted to all save the company. So not only did they 4 million, they did 8 million that quarter. Yesterday. So this is a year and a half later. Yesterday, they had 100% of the company rocks done, right? All the priorities they had set for the quarter. And they had 94% of all company rocks done, right? They are I think they're projecting 200 million this year. They have all the right people in the right seats. The leadership team is rocking it. And the
God.
owner, 3 months ago, decided to do a sailboat around the world for 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
So he's hopping in virtually, right? Because his team is managing the business so well. One of the partners just left on a sailboat with his family for 2 years. It was one of his dreams to do. And he's like, the company's the best place it's ever been. It's run by everyone really well. I trust the team and I can take 2 years off. And he's checking in, of course. He still has some check-ins and stuff. But he was there virtually yesterday from Mallorca. And he's like, I don't know where I'm at right now. I'm in the middle of the ocean. I'm trying to get the Starlink thing. And then, he's dropping in and we're doing the planning. But like in 18 months, going from we're going to be bankrupt to letting my team empower them and me going on a journey with a sailboat with my family is crazy. Right?
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. So I know that the listeners are probably just craving to learn more about you, get in touch with you. Tell them how they can find you. Tell them like what's next for you, what are you working on, and then also how to get in contact with you.
Yeah. So my company is Profit. You can go to the profit as in money, not profit as in Jesus. And then we have a ton of events, a ton of community. We have a firm of, we have an implementer firm. And then, also my passion project right now is delivering all these systems in Latin America. So we have EGM. It's metodoegm.com for the Spanish speakers. And we're helping startups and accelerating companies in Latin America so that we can really bring this power back to Latin America. But yeah, profitrecipe.com. And also, Cesar Quintero in LinkedIn and all these things.
And where can they find your book?
The Profit Recipe is in Amazon everywhere. Yeah. So it's been published. The good thing about my book, it's not a cover to cover book. This is one of the things I love about this book is that I'm a very practical guy and I'm like, nobody reads a book. But if I'm stuck in this stage, you have a chapter for that stage. So just read those chapters and it has different levers that you can pull in each of the stages. So it's not a cover to cover book. It's mostly about like, let's go to the chapter where I'm stuck at and then just read those chapters that can get me unstuck.
Amazing. We'll drop the link, the Amazon link in our show notes as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Been amazing chatting with you today, Cesar. Love you so much. And so glad that we were able to connect today.
Yes, thank you, Anne, and keep inspiring us all. I love following you and your podcasts, your posts, all of that. Like, it's really inspiring to see you lead, thrive, and also mom.
Well, Cesar, I feel the same way about you. You inspire me. So thank you for doing what you're doing and being you.
Thanks for tuning in to Empowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them. Because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.